Hi, welcome to this live demo and Q&A session. My name is Dan Willoughby. I'm a developer advocate for Storj, and I'm thrilled to be a guest here on this stream. I've been working in software for approximately 10 years. I studied computer engineering in college, but I found that I don't like the circuits just as much. And so combined experience, I have about 6 years in distributed data storage, which is what I'm excited to talk to you today about. But I also have Morgan Littlewood with me today. If Morgan, you want to give a brief introduction too?
Hi, Dan. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, I'm the SVP of Product Management at IX Systems. Many of you don't know who IX is, but we're the company behind TrueNAS. And TrueNAS has a couple of different software editions, notably TrueNAS Core and TrueNAS Scale. And then we have a series of enterprise appliances from the M series, which is the flagship, very high-end, high availability appliances, through the X series and then the R series as well. And so what we're talking about is today is TrueNAS, how it integrates with Storj, as we call it, and how we can effectively back up TrueNAS systems to Storj. So Dan's going to be doing a demo of a lot of that integration work that we've been doing recently.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And it's been a pleasure talking with you and preparing this. It's just there's a lot of things going on, but behind the scenes that we're going to show off today. A lot of people have put some work into this, and we're just the ones showing it off. So what I was going to do is just kind of an agenda here. If we share my screen, we're going to walk through how Storj works, and then I'll do a quick just showing the data, the backup credentials and the data protection cloud sync tasks that you'll have to do. But we also have an integration guide, so we'll throw that in the chat for you to follow along as well. But before then, we'll just do a little intro to how Storj works. So what we are is we're a decentralized cloud storage platform. So what that means is we have independent storage node operators that will they have unutilized hardware and they want to, or they have unutilized disk space and they want to join our network and offer it up for others around the world to store it. And you can see in this graphic that all of those dots represent some of our nodes. We have approximately 17,000 nodes scattered across the globe. And when you want, and the way it works is we have a satellite that that's kind of the logistics of the network, handling if like a storage node goes down, it will move that piece of data somewhere else. And we also have applications such as what you'll see with IX on the TrueNAS of how to upload to the network. It's pretty transparent behind the scenes, but what happens is when you upload, first it'll be encrypted, and then that will be split into approximately 80 pieces and distributed across those storage nodes. So those 80 pieces will land in 80 different storage node. And when you need to reconstruct that file, we pull down about a third of those pieces. We don't need all of them to reconstruct that file, and you get that back. And so what that allows us to do is to have a redundant, durable system to back up your data. And so kind of the differentiator with Storj is it is multi-region. So like typical storage providers like Backblaze, they have your data in one data center. And if like, I don't know, a hurricane happens and wipes that entire data center out, your data is gone with it. Storj, on the other hand, you get that for free. And it is when a file goes into the network, it may land in some pieces in New York, maybe some in Oregon, some over in Europe, in the UK. And you get that for $4 or $4 per gigabyte. excuse me, $4 per terabyte per month, and the egress there you can see is $7 per terabyte. And I think, yeah. Is there anything you wanted to add there, Morgan, or I can dive into the demo?
If you go back to one slide, it's a useful set of statistics there. That performance number is very important. It means that effectively people can upload large amounts of data or recover large amounts of data fairly quickly if they've got a good internet connection. The durability 11 nines is very important. That's the way people view the reliability of that data, and that would mean that you would have enormous amounts of data before there's a probability of any data loss occurring within the system. And that durability is when you are just storing the data on Storj. If you have the data on your TrueNAS system plus a copy on Storj, then that durability number increases even further beyond 11 nines to 15 or 16 nines. So, and then the last piece that's probably very important to a lot of our customers and users is the encryption and security. Because we encrypt the data early on in the process, the data that's stored on Storj is completely protected, as no one can ever go and read your data and work out what was in it, and it's only unencrypted when it's back on your system. So all of those things are very, very important to the TrueNAS users. So, and that cost, which is $4 a terabyte per month, which is often the way we describe it, or 0.4 cents per gigabyte per month, is very good. That's relative to closer to $25 to $30 per terabyte per month that Amazon, for example, charges for their standard S3 services. So there's huge savings relative to any standard reliable cloud storage operation, and bringing Storj into TrueNAS was very important to us because it reduces that cost of reliable backup.
Yeah, awesome. And to go along with what you're saying, so Storj has end-to-end encryption built in to the product. So what you'll see later in this demo is a lot of there'll be like this passphrase that comes up, which is kind of an odd UI that most aren't used to. But the reason for that is so that even Storj can't read your data. So.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing to note is Storj is so we're switching between Storj and Storj. It kind of gets confusing, so we'll just keep going with Storj in the future. But if I lax back, that is why. But let's see. We'll go ahead and log into my TrueNAS. I'm going to make sure that my session didn't expire. It did. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I log in here.
Dan is operating on TrueNAS scale 2202, which is what we call Angelfish internally. It's the first version of scale, and this is where we introduced the Storj service into TrueNAS. But Storj is now available also on TrueNAS Core in 13.0 U3, and it's also in the recent TrueNAS scale Bluefin, which just came out on Tuesday, which is called 22.12. And so the same thing that we're talking about here is available on all three of those versions of software.
Yeah, and I made a deal with Murphy's Law that I would not use the new release a day before the stream, just so that we can get along there. But so the first step to back up to Storj, I have my TrueNAS here, is on the left side. In this menu, I'll want to click on Credentials. And up here in the middle, I'll click on Backup Credentials. And then simply on the right-hand side, this Add for Cloud Credentials, I'll click that. And just giving this a name for this credential, we'll go ahead and name it Storj. And you'll want to select the default there, which is Storj IX. And just for a complete walkthrough, we'll go ahead and click that Sign Up Now button. And I'll go ahead and
So the sign up process is obviously only needed the first time you use the IX Storj service. And this is the way that we effectively identify, who owns the data, and effectively sign up for any credit card requirements. Though the first 150 gigabytes of data is free. After that, there is a charge for it, which is done monthly.
awesome. Yep. And so once I sign up, I'll just click here to confirm my email.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll want to continue in the web. So that's right here. And like Morgan was saying, in the newer version, you don't have to. Oh, actually, I want to create access first, and then I'll get to the bucket. But so on the left-hand side, I selected that access, and then I'll click create credentials. Go ahead and call this the TrueNAS credential. I'll want to give it all permissions here, but you can, if say you want like some object locked, you could remove this delete permission so that this credential could never delete anything. That is one way to achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll click encrypt my access. What this is saying that this credential, you're opting into server-side encryption. So that will, in the browser client, we will use that passphrase that you type in to decrypt stuff, but otherwise we can't read that. And I'm going to go ahead and generate a seed phrase. And this is kind of a lesson in good security. Don't share your passphrase publicly on a live stream, but for demoing purposes, we'll allow it. I went ahead and downloaded that passphrase. And it's important not to lose this because of that end-to-end encryption. If you lose your passphrase, we can't recover that data. And that is one of the compromises of having an end-to-end encrypted system.
Yep, very important to.
It looks like someone is asking to scale it down just a hair. I think right there, that'll do. Okay. Which tab was I in? Okay, so then I can create that access. And this access key, I'll go ahead and copy that and go back to the TrueNAS, drop it in there at the top for the access key ID. And then go, I'm gonna have to close some of these, so I go back to the right tab, and then I'll get my secret key. And that will be there. This also is, as it entails, a secret, so you don't want to share that publicly like I'm doing right now, but for this demo, that's okay. And I could just did a quick verify there that says that it is valid. And then I'll hit save. So now that credential is ready, I can head over to the data protection on the left-hand side. And I'll let you give a rough overview of this, Morgan, if you want. We're going to use a cloud sync task, but do you want to talk through what kind of
Sure.
what all these other options are?
Yeah, so with TrueNAS, obviously the important thing is to protect data. So locally, that's protected through ZFS, and people use either mirrors, RAID Z1 or RAID Z2 or Z3, depending on how many parity drives they want. And then, but while Z2 and Z3 are incredibly reliable systems, you can still have a fire or an earthquake or something else that might end up destroying a system. And so you want to protect your data. And the way to do that is to make sure you copy the data to at least one other site. But preferably you want to copy it to multiple sites so that any other major failures don't cause loss of data. And so in this case, Storj acts as effectively multi-site backup because it's distributed across the globe, and any region that might have a major disaster won't cause loss of data. So we view Storj as a cloud, and so what we're doing is using a cloud sync task. Other tasks might be used for replicating data to another TrueNAS system or to another NAS system using either ZFS or rsync. But in this case, we're syncing it to a cloud, and we use an underlying technology called rclone. and we're making it possible to sync data sets from TrueNAS to buckets within the Storj system.
Awesome. Yeah, and that actually reminds me, in this version, I'll need to create a bucket here in the GUI, but in the next version, that's done within the
Mm-hmm.
TrueNAS.
Yep.
So to do that, I'll navigate on the left hand side to buckets,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll go ahead and create a new bucket here. Let's call this my TrueNAS. And the thing to note here is, in order for it to decrypt that data, that credential you made, you'll need to type the same passphrase. And it's not important per se to type it when creating the bucket, but when you try to view these um, files later, you'll want to use that same passphrase as the one given in that credential. Okay, so I think now we're ready to go ahead and add this Cloud Sync task. I'll hit that add button, top right-hand side. And we'll give this a name and I'm going to just back up my home directory every day. And I'll select that Storj credential and then that bucket that I just created. And interestingly, you can pull data down from the bucket to your TrueNAS, but in this case, we want that offsite backup. So I'll change that to push. And then there's a variety of other methods. You can sync, copy, or move.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll just go with the default unless you think there's something else I should do there.
Yeah, so the sync, copy, or move, in particular, when you do copy, you're copying the whole bucket. In this case, I think what you're looking to do is sync the data from your current system to the Storj bucket every day. And so you're making sure that all of the files in your system are synced to Storj.
Awesome. Yeah, you're right. That is what I want to do. And then this is just the the suffix, I think, or where it will land in the bucket. I think the default there is just fine.
Yep.
And then
Yeah,
I
you can
want,
create different buckets for different jobs, and that gives you some administrative benefits later. For example, if you want to delete a bucket or whatever. But if you don't need that, you can have them as just different folders within the same bucket.
yeah, that's great. And then I'll select my home directory as the source of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then interestingly, do I want to, since it's syncing, I think this is like an option to rclone. Is the tick snapshot something I would want to do here?
I don't. Sorry, I didn't quite see that task snapshot. I don't think so. But there are other options for improving performance as well, which are later on.
Yeah, and I think to read up, there's like some docs on rclone. I think I'm happy with the defaults,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and hit.
Yeah, you tend to find that if you're an enterprise user and you've got very high-speed networks like 10 gig and you're doing a lot of data, then some of the defaults might have to be changed to get more parallelism in the backup or sync process. But for a standard home user, generally the defaults work fine.
Awesome. And where would, if someone wanted more information on that, they could reach out on the TrueNAS community forum, right? Or you
That's
have
right.
a live Discord that people can ask questions.
Generally, we recommend people use the TrueNAS community forum for just asking questions like this. The Discord channel is used for developers, for
Oh,
people
okay.
who are trying to help improve the TrueNAS product.
Awesome. Okay, I'll hit save. And then I have an SMB thing set up. So I wanted to connect and just, so I hit Command K there, and this is my local IP of my TrueNAS, so I can connect there. And I was just going to create a screenshot of this,
Mm-hmm.
throw that in there. So that will be the test of if this all runs into there. I'm going to run it again just to make sure it syncs that.
Otherwise, we'd have to wait a day.
Exactly. And so, yeah, that is configurable, right? You can either have it run every day or
Yep.
every.
Yeah, there's clearly, for most people, daily is a very good solution, and you can schedule it to run at any time of night where it's not going to, the traffic is not going to affect your local internet access. But if you wanted to do it every week or every month, you can as well. But daily is fairly economic, and make sure that your data is reliable. Obviously, some enterprises with mission critical data might want to do it every hour, and that's also possible. But they just need to make sure they have the network bandwidth to accommodate these tasks plus all their other workloads.
Great. And so what I'm doing here is I'm going to open that bucket, and I open that text file to make sure I use that same encryption passphrase that we set with that credential. And you see now that this bucket is populated with some files, and I believe there is the current date, and we can open up this screenshot there.
Mhm.
And what I wanted to bring attention to, just not look like it's not going to make it any bigger, but this graph off to the side is showing just a reverse lookup of the IP addresses, a rough location of where the pieces of this file were stored. So you can see there's a big concentration in Europe and also scattered across the US.
Yeah, that's really interesting, that how quickly it globally distributes, and that's the key to that extreme reliability.
Yeah. So that concludes the demo. I think we can transition to some of the questions.
Mhm. Okay, so one of the obvious questions is, about the reliability and the cost and the performance. So as you've seen from that map, the global distribution makes things very reliable. We get occasionally there are major events like earthquakes that will take out a very large region of the globe. Obviously, we've got the tragic war going on in Ukraine and Russia, which is taking out the ability of Ukraine to have a good infrastructure. So this protection on a global basis really makes sure that data is reliable no matter what the major event is. Normally, when you do that massive distribution globally, it costs a lot of money. So if you try and do it with Amazon or another company, you tend to find you pay a lot of extra fees to replicate the data across multiple regions. In the case of Storj, no, it's just by default. And so that cost is much better than it otherwise would be. And typically you find it's 80% lower than AWS or equivalent cloud storage services. And then from a performance point of view, as Dan indicated, when we retrieve data, we have to retrieve about a third of the pieces of the data from all around the globe. And so that performance is actually very good because most of the pieces are available reasonably close by. Probably if you're in South America or Australia, you'll get more of the pieces internationally than you will locally. So there will be some dependency on where you are in the globe in terms of what the performance is. But in general, it's going to be very, very good.
Yeah, and that's great you bring that up. That redundancy we've built into the network actually is how you can have good performance in Europe, but also in the UK. So, or sorry, in the US. And the reason for that is when the file is fetched, we over provision a little bit who we pull it from. So you may get when you're in Europe, you'll get those 30 pieces pulled down from those people in Europe. But when you're in the US, it'll pull from those nodes in the US.
Mm-hmm. So, yep. So we think it's a really good balance of price, performance, and reliability that is very, very useful. And so we're very encouraging of our TrueNAS users to use IX Storj if they have these backup needs. One of the questions about using iXtorj is whether to use it for archive or as a do multiple copies or do a sync, and that will depend on the type of data that you're trying to store and what your workload is. I think by default, the syncing process is probably the best approach. It gives you a second copy of your data offsite in Storj, and so all the protection. And the process of syncing is a reasonably efficient process where we're checking for changes in the data from the previous day and then sending only those changes. So that system works well. However, sometimes people will have a bunch of data that they no longer really need local access to, but they want to make sure it's available. In that case, you can copy the data to Storj, and effectively, if you want to, remove the data from your local system if you want to free up space in the local system. So in some cases, that is a useful process, and you've got an archive of that data that you can get access to if you ever need it. But there are lots of different ways of using the service, so I think you'll find that the community will be quite creative about how best to use it and provide the reliability they need.
Looks like I'm seeing another question here. Says, can you limit the data to a specific region? And the answer, I think that they're referring to that global redundancy. We do have geocentric or geolocation abilities. I don't know if that is an option that can be enabled in the the web console, but I know that reaching out to our support teams that is something that we can do.
Yeah, I think my understanding is it's technically possible and is something that could be productized in the future as a standard offering. Right now, it's not available as a standard offering, but it is something that we're looking at for improving some of the enterprise options that people will have.
Yep, that sounds right. Let's see another one here. How does storage ensure durability of the files? And so, yeah, back earlier in the presentation, we had that image of the satellites. So what those are some centralized cloud systems that monitor the network, and they will detect if say you have 80 pieces initially, it goes down to like 60. It will flag that. We call it repair. Flag it for repair. It will go download those encrypted pieces and then redistribute them throughout the network back to that 80. So in that way, it stays healthy and durable.
The other thing that was very important that we saw in the demo was that you can actually remove the delete option from a bucket. So if you find that you really want to secure some data, you can remove that delete option. And that actually probably avoids the biggest challenge in protecting data, is making sure that from a user error point of view, you can't delete data that is valuable to you in the future.
Yeah. Let's see, another one's coming in here. How does Storj deal with moderation of content that is stored on their nodes if they cannot see the data that is stored? So I don't know the exact answer there, but I do know that our storage node operators, they only have a small fraction of that data. And the only way that you can share it or have it be like publicly accessible, that say someone was sharing some copyrighted material from YouTube, if they chose to share that on with our link sharing service, we would be able to honor like a DCMA takedown notice. The storage nodes themselves, they wouldn't have the complete file of that, and it's an encrypted piece anyway. And so I don't think there would be any issues there.
Yeah, that's the link sharing service. When you're doing it with TrueNAS for a backup system, all the data is encrypted at the source, and so effectively there's no knowledge of what bits are being stored the Storj system, so that content moderation doesn't apply to stuff that is being stored directly from TrueNAS.
Yeah, so it sounds like TrueNAS encrypts it, and then Storj also encrypts it, so you're getting a little bit
Yep.
of a double encryption there, which is awesome.
Yep, that's right.
All right, it sounds like we might have time for one more question. So
one other topic that's interesting is that TrueNAS can also act as a storage node. There's an app that is available where TrueNAS acts as a Storj node in the global network and will store other people's data. So you can both back up your own data and be a storage for other people's backups. And
yeah,
and by
I think
doing that, you can earn some tokens or currency that offset some of the costs of backing up your own data.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what the question was. And if we share my screen again, I think that what you're referring to is I thought it was in the app section, but oh yes, is this? So I clicked on the apps available applications, and this Storj is how you could become a storage node operator yourself and be on the other side receiving those pieces of files and contributing to the network. Awesome. Well, I think that's all the questions we had, and uh, I really appreciate your time and letting me be here, kind of showing off these systems. And we look forward to looking at the new updates and how the community rallies around this, and really just excited about it. So.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's been good talking to you. We've only just released this in September, and we already have over 1,000 users using the Storj backup system, and have had good feedback on performance and ease of use, etc. From a TrueNAS point of view, we intend to keep on improving that. With the Bluefin release, we can create the buckets internally within the software. And in the future, we will be doing additional software improvements within TrueNAS to make it even easier to use and more broadly applicable to our user data flow requirements.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Appreciate it.